Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining today's virtual conference. My name is Divya Som, and I am your host for today. Dun& Bradstreet, in association with ValueFirst, is glad to present this virtual conference on the pertinent topic Reimagining the Conversational Business in the Era of Digital Connect. Before we begin, I request everyone to please take a moment and go through the guidelines that have been displayed on your screens. We encourage you to ask more questions in the session. We request you to please type your queries in the questions section. These will be taken up in the Q&A session after the panel discussion. You may also use the chat section for sharing your views. A couple of tips here. We would like to know you better. Hence, please mention your name and your company name whenever you post your question or your comment. You can also mention the person you are addressing the question to. As you can now see on your screens, there's a Q&A box and a chat box that will help you converse better with the speakers and the moderator. Now let's take a quick look at the flow of today's session. Please refer to the agenda displayed on your screens. It's a promising agenda with an eminent lineup of speakers, ladies and gentlemen. And I would like to take this opportunity to welcome and thank everyone for being part of this virtual session today. May I now invite Ms. Naina Acharya, Leader Operations, Dun & Bradstreet India, to present the welcome address. Welcome, Ms. Naina.
Thank you, Divya. I can see a very generous introduction of myself. So thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of Dun & Bradstreet and ValueFirst, I welcome you to this virtual conference with the central theme, Reimagining the Conversational Business in the Era of Digital Connect. It's always a pleasure to start on time, and I truly appreciate you taking your time from your schedules to be a part of this interesting virtual conference. When we look around us today and compare it just from a few years back, it seems like an era has gone by, but when we look at what we were comfortable with in terms of conversing with our brands, especially because we would require some human to interact with, suddenly when that goes away, we just don't feel the disconnect, neither do we feel uncomfortable chatting with them. As a matter of fact, we are quite open to it. We have become quite open to it. And even while sharing information, although we are a bit skeptical, somewhere we have come to terms that this is the way moving forward. And therefore, when the attitude and the preferences of consumers like us has changed over a period of time, this has changed the dynamics of the business. And therefore, it becomes very, very important for brands to understand that they will have to go back to the drawing board, understand how do they cater to these changing dynamics, which, by the way, is changing as we speak. And therefore, they have to be very dynamic and changes have to be made on real-time basis. And that is where I think topics like these, like reimagining the conversational business in the era of digital connect, becomes irrespective of which business you are in. Now, being from a research background and Dun & Bradstreet being, a pioneer in understanding business problems, I thought it would make more sense to help you understand, with some statistics. There was a survey conducted in, late last year, where they were looking at countries, US, Germany, Japan, and Australia. And of course, in this particular context, we're talking about India, but India has usually, replicated, or I would say been quite close to the statistics that are that were shown in the West. So what the survey said is that the interest in using messaging to interact with brands rose significantly from 52% in 2018 to 62, in America. In the European countries, the survey had the highest average demand of messaging at 65% of respondents. Perhaps not surprisingly, this capability is more interested in the younger, demographies or countries with younger demographies, or millennials who are these days influencing a lot of these kind of trends. And at the same time, just having a machine respond to you without being contextual could also hamper your business. And therefore, it's very, very important to ensure that when you are reimagining your conversational business, it is also contextual to your business, and it has to be backed with a lot of artificial intelligence, because at the end of the day, your consumer preferences is changing by the second, and there's a lot of data that you can accumulate. So how to make use of that data, ensure that you understand your customers preferences and cater to them without really being very snoopy, is a mix that you will need to look at. And the kind of lineup that we have today, in the form of our speakers as well as our panelists, is phenomenal. I'm really looking forward to listen to our speaker, who's going to follow us shortly, as well as a very interesting panel discussion. And I'm really looking forward to a good, interesting session, a thought leadership session with interesting takeaways. Thank you very much for giving me an opportunity to set the context. And now over to you, Divya.
Thank you, Ms. Nana, for helping set the tone for today's discussion. Well, we now have our next thought leader presenting his perspective. I would like to invite Mr. Vish Bajaj, Chief Executive Officer and founder, ValueFirst, to kindly share his views. Welcome, Mr. Bajaj.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So thank you, Nana, and thank you, Divya. I would like to share that the topic, reimagining the conversational business, is indeed quite hot. And for us, we discuss it pretty much every day in our business. So what I would like to do is share the context of why we do so, and then try to share our experiences as we participate in developing this ecosystem. So as a company, ValueFirst, we are in the business of providing enterprise communication solutions. And by that, what I mean is that we service our customers who are typically brands who want to connect with their consumers by offering them solutions over telecom and internet channels for the purpose of enabling communication between the brand and the consumer. So, for example, when I say telecom channels, what I mean is that we offer solutions around SMS and voice. Examples being day-to-day lives, as well as business solutions for business notifications such as OTP, your shipment is on its way, and so on and so forth. So there is a lot of business communication which happens over SMS. Similarly, voice has been a very, I would say, like a traditional channel for both outbound communication as well as inbound press one for this, press two for this, and so on. All the IVR based interactions which brands have to present to their consumers. Similarly, on the internet channel side, we help our customers with the email solutions for sending emails out, which could be transactional emails such as bank statement from a bank, or it could be a promotional email, which is like a marketing notification of some sort. Similarly, we offer on internet mobile, say in the app notification or browser notification. We also provide WhatsApp for business solutions. We are one of the partners in India for WhatsApp. And of course, the theme of today, which is the chatbots. So we provide chatbots, which are AI driven chatbots for our customers. So essentially, uh, our business is in helping our customers for their communication requirements. So over the last 2 decades almost, we have seen that when we have served CMOs and CIOs, that the most important thing for them has been where is the customer, where is their customer, where is the customer spending their time. And of course, in that context, if you see pre-digital era, the customers were spending time on radio, TV, print, and what we call today as traditional advertising. So the CMOs were spending their money on traditional advertising, uh, for example, doing TV advertising, billboard advertising, radio advertising, and so on and so forth. And now, in the last 2 decades, of course, we have seen how it has changed. What began as an experimentation by CMOs when they started allocating their budgets on the digital channels when internet started happening in the country. So they started doing display advertising, followed by email marketing. And then, of course, the social platforms boomed in the country. So consumers started spending time on the social platforms. So the budgets moved to the social platforms. And then, of course, we have seen how mobile got adopted in the country, and mobile and internet pretty much became synonymous, because now internet and mobile go hand in hand with 4G, 5G, and so on. So the budgets pretty much for advertising as well as for running business processes are moving towards mobile and internet, particularly mobile internet. And now, as we notice, the customers are spending their time in not only social but largely, depending on the country, of course, on OTT channels. So in context of India, most of the consumers, in terms of if we have to take where they spend their most time, would be WhatsApp. And WhatsApp is a conversational interface, which means pretty much the large demography of the country which is using WhatsApp is now in sync, now in tune with the conversational interface. So this is what I think now the brands want to leverage. In other countries, it could be Line, Viber, and so on. But in Indian context, we have seen that now that WhatsApp has also opened for business, so there is a lot of traction around using that channel. But coming back to the theme, conversational business. So because consumers are now completely familiar with the conversational interface, and like I said, marketers want to leverage that, they are also being very ably supported by all the developments which have happened in on the AI NLP side. So artificial intelligence, machine learning, and natural language parsing has evolved to the extent, including the low cost of computing and hardware, that we can now enable uh, platforms which can be leveraged by businesses for providing conversational interfaces to consumers for conducting their business. So when we talk to CMOs, CIOs on a daily basis, we understand that largely they are driven around the three themes of acquiring customers for their businesses, and engaging them and retaining them. So acquire, engage, retain is where the CMOs are and CIOs are focused, and that is how they want to leverage the conversational interface. So in that context, what we have seen is that conversational business could possibly be divided into three categories. One, what we call as conversational marketing, where the CMOs or brand managers are using conversation for running their marketing programs. It could be for lead generation, and I will give you an example from one of our customers, which is a financial services company. So they used to run a program for for generating leads using SMS, where an SMS would go to their consumer saying, "Dear customer, your CIBIL score is this much, and we have pre-approved personal loan for you." And then there would be a link within the SMS which the consumer would click, and it would take the consumer to some kind of form which the consumer would then have to fill in. Now, with conversational interface, what this particular customer has done, by replacing the link for the form with a chatbot. So now the same SMS goes to the consumer, but the link is different. When the consumer clicks the link, it opens a conversation. A chatbot starts interacting. And what the customer has seen is that they've had now manifold increase in conversions. So basically, lead generation using the same medium of SMS, but powered now or augmented now by a conversational interface, has created a significant difference for them. And there are many other examples of how brands are using this, right from when the consumer comes to their website or is using their mobile app, that you would see there would be like a little bubble at the bottom of the screen which could open up, and then a conversation can start. It could be uh, where, for example, the brand can help the consumer in navigating the website better, and so on. But the whole idea is that through this conversational interface, simply because consumers are now very familiar with that interface, they can create shifts in their conversions. Similarly, the second category is conversational commerce, where we have seen now a lot of businesses trying to create simple things like, say, virtual assistants, shopping assistants, say on our e-commerce website, through to running a complete program where the customers are displayed or consumers are displayed the SKUs which they can choose. Once they put those in the basket, there is integration with some kind of payment gateway. And of course, now as the ecosystem of WhatsApp Pay will mature, that will even make it easier. So consumers can pay for what they have put in their basket. And then there is a backend integration with the delivery platforms such as, say, Zomato, Swiggy, Dunzo, and so on. So then this allows the business to conduct complete e-commerce, basically not only do the lead gen, but actually consummate the deal with collection of payment and so on. Now that looks very easy as such, but we have noticed that whenever we have spoken to our customers around conversational commerce, there is a lot more which needs to happen in the background. For example, let's say it's a brick and mortar store which now wants to use WhatsApp and chatbot integration for commerce. So they need to develop their backend processes for managing delivery as well as returns as well as customer service. So whilst technology is there, businesses also need to augment it with the change in business processes. The third category of conversational business is what we call as customer service, or say conversational contact center. So a lot of customers are using conversational customer service modules for, of course, primarily to reduce cost, but more importantly to create better experiences for their consumers. And we have seen from experience that a lot of customers want to integrate, say, which automated chatbot along with live agent. So for example, when the AI engine is failing or is not able to comprehend the consumer, the history of the conversation can be passed to a real human, a live agent, with the entire conversation with the chatbot may have had with the consumer. So a lot of work is happening in that direction, a lot of adoption. And as ValueFirst, we service a few countries. We have footprint in 6 countries. What we have seen is that pretty much everywhere there is significant adoption, and particularly after the COVID scenario, there is a greater focus. So the only difference I would say is, for example, in Indonesia, where we service, where we have significant business, we notice that customers are adopting conversational commerce more than conversational customer service. In Middle East, in Saudi Arabia, for example, customer service uh, is being sold more than conversational commerce. And in India, it is a bit of both. We can see a lot of customer service use cases happening on conversation, as well as a lot of trialing, at least pilots, in the last 6 to 8 months, which are now hopefully will become full-scale projects on commerce, on conversational commerce. So, apart from that, apart from these 3 categories, the businesses are also using a conversational interface for improvement in their processes. For example, one of our customers, which is a big four, is using conversational interface for running their entire HR process. So employees can ask for how many leaves are left. They can check the policies, the FAQs, and so on. So it is also being used for internal process improvement within organizations. Apart from that, I would say that the conversational interface is here to stay because consumers are completely geared to that. And the pandemic is precipitating the adoption, but lot of successful pilots have happened, lot of successful real projects have happened. And because there is referencing available around the kind of use cases across different verticals, we will see a significant adoption in the coming months. So I believe the conversational interface is here to stay and will become mainstream. What is important, however, is that it will not be the only mechanism because it must sit within some kind of ecosystem. And I think the ecosystem which will remain as the dominant ecosystem within every brand will be that there will be some kind of marketing automation platform, some kind of omni-channel platform, of which conversational products, whether it is commerce or customer service or marketing, will reside. And also, if you see from the consumer perspective, how will the consumer be approached with the conversational interface? So we have seen that SMS is being chatbot enabled. We have seen websites have chatbots. We have seen mobile apps, and of course, WhatsApp predominantly now, ever since they have opened for business. So what I would like to end with is that omni-channel platforms will be mainstay, but within that, conversational interface based interactions will grow significantly. And consumers will be able to experience the chatbot in multiple locations, multiple uh, ways of interaction with the brand, whether it is the mobile app or their WhatsApp itself, or it could be website or through SMS, like I said. So it is pretty much here to stay. And I think it is exciting times for people involved in providing solutions around this, and also for CMOs and CIOs to leverage this new phenomenon. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for that informative session. I'm sure all the participating audiences have had some key takeaways from your session today. Well, we look forward to making this session interactive with everyone here, and it's time now for a quick poll. Please gear up to participate in the poll, which would be displayed on your screens. Everyone must participate, requesting all our panelists and speakers as well to please cast in your polls, since your thoughts matter a lot to us. We've got 4 questions here. I'm sorry, we've got 5 questions here. All you need to do is scroll down to answer all 5 of them. So requesting all those who've logged in, all those who are listening in, to kindly take the polls, as it really helps us make this session more interactive and engaging. Once again, for those of you who are wondering about the silence, I'm just waiting for all the others who haven't responded to kindly take the polls, and please queue in your inputs here. We've got 5 questions that you can answer quite quickly. All you need to do is scroll down a bit, since we've got, since it's a little long, and you need to scroll down to opt for all 5 questions. Another minute, and we'll have to close the poll, requesting all our panelists as well to join in. Well, we have a very interesting panel discussion on the other side of this poll that I'm sure everybody is looking forward to. And the last few seconds before which we would be closing the poll, another 30 seconds to be precise. As I can see, we've seen an overwhelming participation. Truly happy to see such a vibrant set of audience. Thank you, everyone. Um, I think it'll be time to close the poll in a few seconds from now. Meanwhile, let me take you to the most awaited knowledge sharing and interactive session, the panel discussion. Today's discussion is around the topic reimagining the conversational business in the era of digital connect. And we have some very interesting names here today. The session will be moderated by Ms. Acharya, Leader Operations done in Bradstreet, India. Thank you, Ms. Acharya, for joining us. Our first panelist is Mr. Milind Acharya, Head Marketing, Bunge India Private Limited. Thank you, Mr. Acharya, for joining us. We also have with us Mr. Jayant Jain, Vice President Marketing and Consumer Services and Head Shopper Insights Reliance Retail Limited. Thank you, Mr. Jain, for joining us on the panel today. Following him is Mr. Lavdeep Singh Walia, Chief Marketing Officer, More Retail Limited. Thank you, Mr. Walia, for gracing the panel today. We also have with us Mr. Abhay Bapna, Head Applications, Adani Wilmar Limited. Thank you, Mr. Bapna, for joining us today. Following him is Mr. Vish Bajaj, CEO and MD, ValueFirst. Thank you, Mr. Bajaj, for joining us on the panel. Let us begin the panel discussion. Over to you, Ms. Naina. Before that, requesting all our panelists to kindly come on video. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Divya. It's amazing to see such an esteemed panel, and I'm really humbled to kind of moderate this session. Welcome, Mr. Abhay Bapna, Mr. Milind Acharya, Mr. Jain, Mr. Lavdeep Singh Walia, and Mr. Vish. It's excellent to see all of you taking time out from your schedule and being a part of this. Now, the theme of this, as Mr. Vish, gave a lot of insights, but the very theme, reimagining the conversational business in the era of digital connect, has become a very integral part of the DNA of any business. And as Mr. Vish also explained, that omni-channel modes of communicating and conversing with the client has become second skin, has become the new norm for most of the businesses. Having said that, what would be the most relevant thing for you, the most relevant tool for you, and what actually falls into the exact genre of the business that you are in is extremely critical for everybody and anybody to understand. And therefore, reimagining does not mean disrupting what you've done, but it's about doing what you're doing, but doing it in such a way that it really revolutionizes the way you see your business. So, with this, there are a couple of questions that we thought we should deliberate on. But before that, I would just like to give a couple of examples just to set the tone. So first thing is when you talk about technology, everybody says that you need. Yeah, let's go ahead with just making sure that we have a good technology. We have chatbots, and for a chatbot, if you tell a chatbot that thank you so much for sending my luggage to Calcutta instead of Kochi, and the chatbot says, thank you, we're very glad you love our services, so we look forward, to working more with you. And basically, what happens is that although you put chatbot as a system in your business, it couldn't understand sarcasm. So then in that case, the question arises is that if you have a chatbot, you will need to make sure that it actually is able to understand the conversation and cater to the customer the way they want. So just having a technology, just because it's a norm, doesn't seem important, doesn't seem kind of the solution. Now, if you look at this example per se, then in that case, when we look at conversational business, we need to make sure that we have the right kind of tools. And that is where all the other things associated with chatbots, to make them effective chatbots, becomes extremely important, which is where this conversation or this panel discussion is something that we really need to understand, which will help us understand what is more relevant for our businesses and how do we need to leverage technology in its true sense. Well, with that, I would like to open with the first question, and I would open this to our esteemed panelists. The first one is, in such uncertain times, how can business leverage technology to provide enhanced customer experience? Although this may seem like a very generic question, it is pretty imperative. And Mr. Vish shared a lot of good insights for us, and I would request our other panelists to also share their views because they come from diversified sectors. So, Abhay, Jain, Lavdeep, could you share your thoughts on this?
Very good afternoon to you, Nena, and greetings to all our viewers and panelists here, esteemed panelists. I hope that the festive season brings better tidings and the times improve for all of us.
Yes, I'm sure.
Having said that, we have to, fall back onto the fact that we are going through a time where everything seems to have been disrupted. And we are all learning to adapt. It's been a few months now, and I mean, almost more than half a year. And we've found ways and means of carrying on with our businesses, and some of us are doing even better than before. So really speaking, what is this whole thing about? When you say reimagining, we are not reimagining our businesses, but we are reimagining ways and means to keep connected with our customers, to keep our customer base in perspective, so that they can, one, ease their ability to reach out to us, and also for us to be able to reach out to them, whether it's for outbound communications or whether it's for addressing their grievances or problems, if any, or queries. So really speaking, reimagining here is just in ways of dealing with the situation that COVID has thrown up. Most of the technologies that we talk about haven't happened all of a sudden and are not COVID or this pandemic specific. They have been around for some time, and technology providers have been trying to what COVID has done is it has accentuated the need for them and expedited the adoption. What used to be buzzwords and what used to be nice words that people would like to throw around at such conferences have now become a necessity for most of our businesses to adopt. And the businesses have to adapt. But really speaking, the businesses per se haven't changed. We haven't reimagined those businesses. If we are retailers, we are retailers. If we are bankers, we are bankers. Okay? And that's the essential service that we will continue to offer to our customers.
Right.
That basic business hasn't changed. What has changed are the tools that we use. And all of these are nothing else but tools. When we start talking, I mean, there are times when it looks like we are talking of a completely new way of marketing or a completely new way of doing something. That's not really true. What is true is the fact that everything that we used to do, we have to do, but with constraints being placed upon us, with customer behavior changing out, the place where we can meet our customer changing, the way that we can talk to our customer changing, our entire digital wave coming in where the customer is now, instead of coming to brick and mortar stores, ordering through an e-commerce channel. So all these things, which have been happening for some time, have now got expedited, accentuated by the pandemic. And that is what we are doing now to be able to adapt. So all these interesting technologies that we talk about are now becoming necessary, but we must understand that they still are a part of our business. We cannot be domain. I mean, for a technology provider, yes, that's their business. But for us, this is just one tool, and we've got a lot of them to use, right?
True.
Now we have to find which of these are the most useful ones. As Mr. Bajaj said, many of the time.
You are on mute, Mr. Jain.
Yeah. So the time for these technologies is here. We all must learn how to adopt them. We must adapt our ways of working to use these more efficiently. But I must say right in the beginning that the purpose for these technologies shouldn't be for us to replace our human workforce. It should be to enable our workforce to do better, to improve upon our process efficiencies, to improve upon the ability of our human interface to deliver services on new channels or omni channels better. That should be the objective of adopting these technologies. Over to the other panel.
Yeah, yeah. So, Abhay, would you like to share your thoughts as well?
Yeah. So the thing is, yes, during last 10 months or 12 months, the things have changed. And mostly what has changed is the use of technology at the end user level. So what has changed, the way we were buying things earlier and the way we are buying right now, there is a change. Now people at the one end, consumer is more aware of what are the products available, where it is available, what are the prices and everything. And he wants, so due to multiple platforms, he's able to get like, personal information, personal better engagement with the companies, or like, if you are at the company side, you are able to engage more better through chatbots or through other means to the customer. So that is what is changing now or changed. Definitely it will not replace a human being, but it will enable them to take better decision at right time. And what he's searching is what he needs it now, not at the future. So the engagement cycle has little bit changed over a period of time. Now companies are like giving more human centric or customer centric information to individuals, targeted approach. Not
Right.
lots of information are available. They are more focused on both customer and segment where they can sell their products. So
Absolutely.
finding leads has now become very easy compared to past. That is what we are feeling actually. And
Absolutely.
due
Absolutely.
to the new mode of communication during COVID period, the sudden change in the technologies, or like people, instead of going to physically, now it was more of a mobile based application. So that has also changed where what stock was available, not available. So that has changed the thinking, and that's where the adoption is. Yes, definitely that was the need, or it was a force kind of thing. That's for people started using more of that. But again, the technology needs to be simple, ease of use is the must thing, and that's where adoption increases actually.
Absolutely. I would like to hear from Mr. Lavdeep as well, because the industry that he comes from, given the current pandemic situation, it was probably the most used kind of services, which is where I think technology played a very critical role to help cater to the needs of the public. So, Lavdeep, can you? My apologies, Lavdeep, can you share your thoughts as well on this
Sure,
before we move on to the next question?
sure. So first of all, thank you very much for having me. Uh, Special thank to Nana for orchestrating it. We haven't got a chance to meet earlier. Uh, yeah, so well, we were in a very, I would say, very unique situation. 7 months ago, we were all sitting in the boardroom thinking about how to increase demand, and 2 months later, we were figuring out how to supply and ensure that we satisfy the demand. So it was a complete turnaround in the way the thinking was earlier. Uh, Having said that, I think I agree with Jayant that already there was a move towards alternate channel of servicing and alternate channel of communication, and we were observing this for last couple of years. Traditional media, for example, was going down, and role for digital and more targeted media was going up, and so on and so forth. But I think what has happened with pandemic is it has now fast tracked by 5 years, and and it didn't give us time to kind of get ourselves ready. So
Right.
so the real challenge in the beginning was to kind of make sure that we address the supply issue than the demand issue, and our all effort as an organization was to ensure the stores are completely filled, and to a very contrary view on how things were handled. So we said we want to make sure that we interact and we do a commerce the way consumer is comfortable with. And the most comfortable way of still buying is picking up a phone call and giving the order. or sending a picture shot of a list of a grocery on a WhatsApp number of our store manager, right? This is real
Yeah,
India,
simplest way.
right?
Yeah, true.
And we had, what we did was we picked up a very few core member of our team who were dedicated to kind of look at alternate channels like WhatsApp and in app and things like those and web pages. But predominantly the whole idea was to ensure that our phone lines go up. The people who are sitting and receiving phone calls are being able to kind of understand and cope up with the demand that has gone up, right? So we had a very, so first 2 months were basic, and I think it worked beautifully for us. Consumer even now has acknowledged the effort that we've done. So the organization was not moved completely to an app and stuff like that, because like I think Mr. Vish said, so ecosystem also needs to be ready, and your infrastructure has to be ready for a new one. And so consumer also has to be kind of in an acceptable form. So I think that was the thing. But it also gave us a chance, like it gave Mr. Modi a chance to set up, like he claims to have a healthcare ready. It gave us a chance to get the alternate channels ready. And now we have multiple other channels except for WhatsApp. We have every other channel to satisfy the demand. So I think it was all disruption, but we picked up our battle and moved step by step.
Superb. I mean, this is good, Lavdeep, because this helps me to move on to the next question, which is very relevant in today's times, that we were asked to sprint before we could even learn to walk in the pandemic situation. Because is the culture of the people around us. Other than the millennials, there are very few people who are open to, adopting technology. And at the same time, as a business, overnight, if you know that technology can bring together your consumers and you'll be able to communicate with them better. First thing is to bring about the cultural change and embracing the new methods, convincing your people to start using the product themselves. And because you have to convince them that this will ultimately lead to customer experience. So my question to the panel is what is the role of industry leaders in bringing the cultural change and embracing new methods of customer experience? Because this is extremely critical. If you are not able to convince them, if you're not able to bring that cultural change, this cannot happen. And the pandemic actually forced us. So, I mean, I would want, Lavdeep, Jayant, and Milind, one of you. In fact, Lavdeep, since I can see you on the screen, can you share
Yeah,
your
sure,
thoughts on this with
sure.
respect to the
Yeah,
cultural change?
this is a very important question. Okay, and I'd like to address it with two parts. So the first part was our ability to understand technology. I think I personally believe that like for coming from a marketing point of view, I have a team who understand traditional media very well. I have a team who understand age-old practices of advertising. But when you come from a perspective of conversational e-commerce or social media commerce and so on and so forth, that's where I think technologically we kind of are still way to go. So the step one was not to burden everybody with a transition and go out of complete control. So we took few steps. Step one was to kind of pick up some part of our business and start piloting. And small pilots always help. And we picked up some 30 odd pilots in sometime in the month of June with various different agencies to help us how to reach customers better, to look at even as small as how do we reach out to customers through Facebook better, how do we reach out to everybody has their own solutions, and we were testing various solutions. And really a radius of 5-6 kilometers is what we were looking at. And those gave us also kind of relative comparison as to what kind of infrastructure is something that we understand. It's not about a company who comes and their expertise, also about our kind of easiness to understand and go with the flow. So those pilots were very useful to convince and make the cultural change start happening, because the belief in technology, unless you use, is not there, right? So
Absolutely.
technology is such a big word. You can just drown and never get out of it, right? So therefore, so we chose that multiple pilots to kind of arrive at what solution we want to pick up and we still have 10, 12 going on, and but it helps us to kind of becoming sharpshooted and choose specific areas where we wanted to work on.
Yeah, because as industry leaders say that these days we do not have the time to the liberty of using endless time. It's better to fail sooner and have more pilots. So
That's
I
right.
think and because you get proof of concept of what's good and what's not, so that's when you can go back to the management, and I guess that's what can bring about a faster culture change. Milind, I would like to know your thoughts as well, because we spoke earlier and you had some very interesting thoughts to share on this question.
Yeah, thank you, Nana, and thank you, everyone. Good to meet you guys in a virtual world and discussing about the transition that the world is going through. Uh, well, like like I come from a very traditional industry, FMCG, and that too in the cooking oil space. Uh, what has happened, and Jayant rightly picked up, is that technological changes have been happening for a long time. uh, the pandemic has actually accelerated a lot of things. A lot of adaptation have happened in these changing times. I think even in past, when technologies have changed, one thing that industry leaders, one has to exhibit is there is no looking back. I mean, you have to embrace it, right? It starts with top, and you have to say, yeah, this is life. This is going to stay, and now let's move on from here. The second important behavioral change that one has to kind of drive through the organization is engage, as Lavdeep was talking about, right? If we fail, it's good, it's okay. Let's try it out. Let's take up these pilots and move on. The third most important thing that I have observed is being agile, right? Because things are going to change. We don't know what is going to happen, let's say 3 months down the line, right? I mean, we have been kind of breathing nicely before a week or so, and now we are worried, like with what has happened, like the second wave and the third wave, and we don't know what's going to happen. So agility is extreme importance. uh, More than that, from a leader's perspective, I think one has to demonstrate a childlike attitude, right? Know it all is not going to fit. Technology is industry diagnostic. Technology is objective diagnostic. Every industry, every brand will have their own set of objectives. Asking more questions to technological partners or agencies or your team about how can we do this, how can we resolve this problem, and that inquisitiveness demonstrated from the leader is going to drive this adoption first within the organization and then outside. So I think these are a few traits of which the leaders have to adopt: being agile, embrace, engage with internal and outside partners, and being extremely inquisitive. Know it all is not going to solve, right? You need to be asking questions about how can, why not, and then the technology will be able to help you.
Absolutely, Milind, because for any business solution, the W's and the H have to be answered. Whether it's, and irrespective of who is kind of the pioneer of this, whether it's a marketeer or whether it's the IT person or whether it's the business head for itself. So I completely agree with
Just
you.
to add,
Yeah,
Naina, on what
yeah,
Milind is saying, one aspect of technology-led solution is that it's a very iterative in nature, unlike the traditional form of services or media solutions. Therefore, one must keep a patience high, and one must keep flexible enough to kind of relook at it. So you'll have to make, let's say, 10, 12 adaptations to one single solution to really make it apt for your kind of need. And I think that's also flexibility that comes only with technology. You can't do it in otherwise, right? So I think iteration is, we have one tool which I started looking at sometime in end March, and now we're still exploring ways to make it better. So I
all
think
right.
those are some few things which must keep on and stay on course, because it's not that you just fit it. It's not a plug and play. You have to make it more suitable to your needs.
Okay.
And another thing which Mr. Lavdeep said is like, uh, you start, don't complicate too many things, start simple so that adaptation becomes easy. If you put too many rules in the engine or technology, then it becomes very complex to adjust, adapt. And so start simple, do simple pilot and let the user give the feedback, and they are the one who are the owner or promoter of the technology, whichever way you are using. That is what also I'm observing. Instead of IT
Couldn't
driven,
agree more. I couldn't
I'd
agree
like
more
to take
with
a
you,
step
Mr.
back and go back to the question that you had. How to bring about a behavioral, attitudinal, or a change in the leadership. The situation for us in India has been that whenever we adopt technology, first of all, the biggest fight that we would have had was to invest in customer dealing technologies, right? To ensure that we've got to enhance customer experience. Though these are things which are understood to be accepted across the board, but the amount of effort that goes into convincing people to invest in these is not small, because the expectations from these are very different. So adopting any new technology, and these are a whole bunch of, or a whole host of technologies which have come in over the last 5-10 years. So companies are still, and we've got n number of these within our overall group. So getting people to, philosophically, first of all, accept the idea that you have to continue to, invest in newer and newer technologies. So that is at a philosophical level as to how much of our business turnovers and profitability do we continuously invest. If you go back 2 decades, you invested in a technology and then you used it for a very long period of time. But today, the kind of technologies and the tools which are coming in, you have to continuously update and change these. So, what Lavdeep and Milind have said, you have to continuously upgrade yourself, bring in new tools. These have to be customized for specific situations and specific users, specific targets. Now, that is something which, as large organizations, we were not adapted to doing. So that is the first change that has to be brought in. That now you have to be much more agile. You have to continue, and you cannot expect your returns to happen over a long period of time. So your decisions today have to be made keeping just a very short period. So instead of talking now, earlier it was a management concept, it was a management rule that you thought short term, mid term, long term, and the long term was the most strategic of the lot.
Short term.
What's happened today? The long term has disappeared.
Yeah. So in fact,
Jayant,
on this point, sorry to cut you there, but on this point itself, when we look at short term, long term, etc., everything boils down to one thought that's crossed my mind right now is the amount of data that we have, the amount of customer base that has catapulted in leaps and bounds. And to be able to understand your customer, to understand their preferences, their changing attitudes, if even though you have your existing tools, I guess something that takes it to the next level, that is using an artificial intelligence for that matter, using machine learning for that matter, using natural language processing for that matter, makes conversation, gives a different I should say look or dynamism to the entire conversational business, which is where Jayant, I wanted to also understand that if we move from the culture now more towards the conversational business and look more at the technology intelligence, especially in the new age customer conversational methods, because that will be very important for our viewers to listen to, because it's actually AI is used perpetually for everything, isn't it, Jen? So which is where we would really want to know that thought, because in the interest of time, I just want to make sure that we understand what is relevant and contextual for a business. So can you share your views on this? In fact, I would want you and Vish as well as Abhay to kind of share your views on this.
Well, see, organizations will have a certain huge quantity of data today. And the quantum of data that they have been dealing with, or information that they deal with, has been rising. Just as the rule for the computer storage industry has been that every year it doubles up. In our case, I think it's been it goes up by 10 to 100 times every year. So you've needed tools and ways to manage the data, then use that data to for data mining, knowledge generation, and therefore be able to use that data better. Today, your customer now interfaces with you over newer channels in many different ways and creates more data than he or she has ever done in the past. Now, for us to be able to take that data and use any of these new tools, whether it's machine learning or AI, in fact, these are the only tools today available which can help us handle that quantum of data in a relevant enough manner, in a timely enough manner to be able to respond back to the customer in a sensible way. Because if your customer has touched, I mean, for us, let's say we've got 30 different businesses that the customer could be interacting with at different points of time. Now, to be able to relevantly respond to them as an organization, a single organization, we need to know where she has been and what she's done and what she's expected. That's not easy. You dealt with data stacks at different businesses. Now you want to bring all those data stacks together. You want to bring legacy data for years into place to be able to understand your customer better. See, the purpose of all these tools is so that you understand your customer better, you customize your responses to them, and these are intelligent. They can be, I mean, your customer can be interacting with you on different points in different languages, with different expectations at different in businesses. But we need to be able to then deal with them at a human level. The whole idea to bring machine learning and AI into the picture is so that without being present in a face-to-face interaction with a customer, me as an organization can deal with them, and for them to be able to think that they are dealing with a human and a human organization. That's the whole idea behind this, right? I would. Right. I don't know if the other panelists have a different view to it, but that's how we approach this. So all these technologies have to help us do this.
Absolutely.
And it's early days today for us to be actually being utilizing this. Yeah. These tools have come in, but these tools themselves have a learning time. There's a learning curve for the tools themselves. And that is going to take a certain amount of time. As somebody said in the past, that this thing has been accelerated. We've jumped 5 years or 10 years. Right? And now we are depending on tools which are in a very nascent stage. So it will have its own piquant problems.
In fact, Vish in his keynote address really put in a lot of aspects because, having dealt very closely with a lot of customers, Vish, can you share your views on this particular question as well? Because artificial intelligence has been a nice jargon which has been used extensively across all businesses, but especially in terms of the conversational business. Can you define the role of AI and how it is extremely important to understand the dynamics before really even investing into it? Vish, can you share your views?
Yeah, I think first of all, AI on its own is a great technology, but like Jayant was saying, it needs to learn things specific to, say, your domain. For example, if you want to create a conversational interface for a chat between the brand and the consumer to happen in, say, banking industry, then the AI engine must be able to understand the banking terminology, the banking jargon, and so on. And that requires effort. Basically, you need to train your AI engines. The machine learning needs to happen. And it is a process of time. And the more usage adoption of the chatbot or AI in particular would be, the better learning there would be. So you need to train it in advance of launching as well as let it learn on the go. So it is a process, and that is why I think companies who have been in AI engine training, for example, you can feed the entire, say, Wikipedia to it and so on, so that it learns. You can do a lot of Twitter feed. You can make it intelligent through effort. But in the end, the domain specific maybe one in advance, but largely it will happen on ground. So you could start with, say, 70% success rates, and then it gradually increases. That is why a lot of chatbots which are dependent on AI also rely on handover to a live agent. And that is an integral part of the deployment. So we have seen most customers using the technology in such a way that there is a fallback. But we also know that with time, the fallback will go down because the machine will learn on its own through the adoption.
So Vish, also just tell me if you talk about preferences of businesses, because this steps back to what Abhay had also mentioned, that keep it simple. So things like WhatsApp and chatbots these days have become very simple. They have become something which the customers prefer. and it's easy to integrate within your business. So technologies such as WhatsApp and chatbot, does it really help them to maximize the product awareness?
Yeah, so I think when we speak of product awareness, we are essentially talking about the marketing use case. How can a brand
I think
create awareness about its products? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, you are.
Yeah. So great. So I was saying that brands need to have marketing programs and where they can use technology for, say, creating product awareness. Largely, they have to also operate in regulatory framework, Indian Hindi and so on. Likewise, WhatsApp has their own rules. So, for example, WhatsApp does not allow any kind of promotional use cases. So they only allow the medium to be used for transactional purposes. So if you want to use WhatsApp for product awareness, then first of all, the consumer should have opted into the WhatsApp number or WhatsApp channel from there. Then if the consumer is creating some kind of pull, then of course you can use the 24-hour window which is available from WhatsApp to respond to a consumer, and that, so it is a mechanism available for brands. However, the catch here is that it will be pull based. So if you want to overcome this and you want to create product awareness, then you have to do push marketing, and then you are limited to channels such as SMS, where you can still integrate a chatbot. Like I gave the example of this financial services company. So things are possible. Ultimately, you need to know the use case which needs to be serviced, and accordingly you can choose the technology. Also, for example, if you want to use WhatsApp, then you need to get approvals from WhatsApp in the first place. So your use case may or may not get approved. So there is that dependence as well, whether the product managers or this approval team at WhatsApp recognizes your use case as non-intrusive or consumer friendly from their own internal benchmarks.
Okay.
So having said that,
Interesting.
Product awareness can also be, yeah, that is a real constraint. And we have seen a lot of customers coming to us wanting to do things, but then WhatsApp not approving on practical grounds. So then we have to create
While
So
Vish comes back, I just want to. Sorry, he's there already. I have
yeah,
one
Vish is,
view on the data.
yes.
So and that's my personal belief that the from a futuristic point of view, which is not long term but like really short term, the organizations who will succeed in long term will be one who will be able to learn how to use the data for their business decisions. And to me, the biggest deterrent is actually our belief that data is only restricted to a descriptive analytics. The moment you start using data from analytics and predictive, looking at trends and stuff, you will see the power of that. And therefore, I go back to the first principle of the belief of a management or an organization to keep looking at the data more from a predicting behaviors than just a descriptive data about your P&Ls and things like those. And if you believe in that, then you deploy technology to solve it, and don't start technology and go back to data. It won't work like that.
I'll add one more aspect to this, Lavdeep, because, in our research, we say that, it's good to be descriptive and predictive, but it's more important to be prescriptive as well. Because, just telling a person a problem doesn't help. We also need to look at solutions. So I guess, DPP is something which works very well in today's time, which is where, when it comes to experiences, it would really be interesting to understand that in your respective businesses, dear panelists, uh, you are spoiled for choices. So you have to look at omni-channel presence, you have to look at personalized experience, you have to, and in a country like India, everybody would prefer multilingual platforms as well. So as people who are in the market, what is your view? And this is again open to Jayant, Milind, because in our conversation you had a lot of things to share on this. And Lavdeep, even you can add, because the kind of business that you're in. Again, I'll repeat my question. With you spoiled for choices in your respective businesses, has omni-channel presence provided unified customer experience on your platforms? And also, when you looked at them to create a personalized experience, would going multilingual help you, or how was it like? So I'm opening the question to you. Yeah, anyone. I mean, because we are running short of time, and therefore I would like one of you to take up this question. Jayant, Milind, Lavdeep.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
So then I'm always amused when these things come up in the manner that you put them. These aren't really choices for us. Okay, this is a necessity.
Yeah.
Getting multilingual or using these kind of technologies are no longer choices. The choice at best may be of which particular, vendors solutions we may adopt. But really speaking, there is no choice. In a country like ours, with so many different languages, and not just geographically different, territories where you may need to have a different language, but in the same city itself or in the same geography, you have customers who use so many different languages. We need these. Okay? And we are still in very early days. We've been doing this now or trying to do this now for more than a decade, but it's still early days. The technology on this is rather nascent. The solutions available do not do this very well. So going ahead, this thing will pick up, but right now it's an early day. But really speaking, there are no choices available to us. Now you look at it, it's not just high-end technology that we are talking about. Something as simple as, if you go back a step, just till a year or so back, we were still fighting the situation where our call centers, where we have pre-scripted responses. Okay? They are in a particular language and they do only a particular type of a job. As many of the panelists have said, to be able to do this more intelligently and to be more responsive, more nuanced, and more understanding of the sentiment. We are still talking of technologies which helped a human-to-human interface, where technology enabled us to understand how the customer was reacting. If the customer's voice was getting stressed, then what is the kind of response you do? So that is where you were. And all of a sudden in a year, you jump to saying that remove the human from the interface and now just the technology responds back. That's a huge quantum jump. It hasn't happened yet.
Absolutely.
It won't
Absolutely.
be successful yet. You still need that. You still need to enhance the human's capability to be able to do this. Whether you are doing, you're promoting a brand and you're giving them information, or you are responding to their queries or to their complaints. Each of these requires a huge amount of understanding of that situation, of the product or the service being offered. That is where your technology today is still grappling with that challenge. Now you are trying to bring one step further, bring multiple channels of interaction all into one, bring data from all these channels together. The kind of technological backend that you need on this, the computing power that you need, and the ability to amalgamate so many different data stacks, databases, and make sense out of that is humongous. It's a very new, very large scale requirement. It will take a long time, and it will take a lot of investment and a lot of commitment on behalf of the top end of most of these organizations to be able to put this into place. This is
Absolutely.
a challenge going ahead, and not just because of the pandemic. The pandemic has accelerated the process, but it's not just because of that, even otherwise.
Absolutely, Jain. Because if you go to see, what Abhay had told earlier, that start small, there is an example that I would like to share, that in the due course of our lives, even if we have a small thing like upgrading our machine, we have to interact with a couple of people in the organization. But these days, chatbots have made our life so easy. All we have to do is just put in a request. Like one of my friends, when she shared that with me, that she just speaks to her chatbot and says, I need to upgrade my machine. And the chatbot says, don't worry, just leave your machine in office. And when she comes back, her machine is upgraded. I mean, that's a delight for anyone.
Well,
So we
I
start
think
small.
that's a fantastic scenario. Who authorizes it? We in our organization deal with the fact that any decision which requires money, any decision, there are levels of authorizations which have to be there.
Right.
All these chatbots and all these technologies which are now trying to speed this up or make this into a seamless transaction have to understand that those authorizations, the ability to say that yes, you can go ahead and spend this, or yes, you can replace this machine, or whether it's for an employee or for a customer, all of this requires authorizations utilizing money, utilizing resources, funds. That still needs to come from a human being or from a very structured hierarchical set
I
of
agree, Jain,
decision making.
I agree, Jain, but you know what? Over a period of sorry, Lavdeep, is that Lavdeep?
Let me give a little twist to the way the multilingual is actually a very small part of the overall personalization strategy for organizations. Okay, and we still, like Mr. Jayant also said, we still are at a very nascent stage of trying to bucket customers in various segments, right? So like companies like us, we deal with about more than 10 million customers in a month. Now for us to look at this data and then break it down to a few small segments is the first step towards the personalization. Okay, and being relevant to them in terms of our offering and services, and then the translation and lingual is actually one part of the overall offering, right? So therefore step one is to kind of bisect your audience into small segments where you can start becoming relevant, right, with your offering. And then you use all the technology to kind of reach to them in the way they want, and all of that happens. And therefore the lingual part will naturally come to it, because when you want to become personal to somebody, right, you have to talk in their language, right? You cannot talk in a French language when talking to an Indian, right? So therefore those aspects will anywhere get covered, but I think we're a little away.
Nana.
True. I couldn't agree much. Yes. Is that Milind?
Yeah, Nana. And I would like to add a slightly different perspective here. While both the gentlemen, Jayant and Lavdeep, has been talking from a retailer's perspective about plenty of data. Now, most of these things are true about a lot of data and how to mine it for industries and businesses which are direct to consumers, be it financial services, whether it is insurance, whether it is automobiles, or whether it is retail. Right now, look at an example like us. We are manufacturers. There are channel partners, whether it is mom and pop kirana stores, or whether there are retailers like Reliance or more in between us. For us to have a meaningful conversation with a consumer, it is extremely difficult for us to know, because we practically don't know about their behavior, right? Their behavior is known based on a transaction to a channel partner, not to the brand owners like us, right? Now let me give you the perspective about, and hence most of this technological adaptation, whether it is AI or chatbot or whatever, WhatsApp, whatever you want to call it, has happened in terms of a channel management perspective, right? Manufacturers have used AI and chatbot technologies for interacting with their channel partners, whether it is retailers or whether it is distributors and things like that. But from a brand building perspective, direct interactions with the consumer for product information dissemination or anything of those sort, the technological adaptations have not happened. And there are two major constraints here. One is what Vish talked about in terms of the constraints from the technological standpoint, or like what WhatsApp is saying, only transactional. It's difficult to kind of interact with the consumer with all the product details without spamming it, and which is practically true. At the same time, how do you know the consumer? How do you know the behavior? For example, today in a diverse country like India, we are selling food products, and a very simple solution like a recipe, right? It's very, very difficult to understand for a chatbot to understand how do we kind of understand the behavior of that consumer, what will be the culture, what will be the food choices, and things like that for a manufacturer, right? For a so yes, technology is there, but I think at best, sometime back, Jayant spoke about, and Vish also said that these intelligence engines need a lot of data to kind of learn themselves. Unless and until we mature to that level, it is going to be difficult, and this technological adaptation will limit to a certain kind of sources. For example, CRM for a brand like us, very much possible, right? You have a very open transactional relationship with the consumer. Consumer reaches us. You have a very intelligent software or a chatbot interacting with it. So what used to happen over a phone call earlier or an email earlier can be the role can be taken over by a WhatsApp chat. In fact, we have already implemented one of those things for our channel partners, and we are in process of doing it for our consumers. So those opportunities are there, right? But if you look at in terms of most aspect of our transaction with a consumer, it's going to take a lot of time, right? Especially from a brand or a manufacturer which has a channel partner to interact with the consumer. We are not direct to consumer kind of industry. So these are some aspect. While these are fastly adapting technologies by a consumer, while these are powerful technologies, there are constraints from the technologies point of view, as well as from the brands and manufacturers to know and again be relevant, as Lavdeep was talking about, right? Being multilingual is not only part about being personalized, right? You need to know a lot more about them, right? So these are practical challenges, and which I'm sure as we move ahead, somewhere down the line it will fall in place. I don't know how, but it has to fall in place for a better consumer experience.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more with you, Milind. We interestingly now the Q&As have started and the people are actually pouring a lot of questions. So very quickly, the first question is addressed to Mr. Vish. And the question is, how do you see voice evangelize in conversational AI?
Yeah, I think first of all, in the context of vernacular multilingual that was being discussed, voice plays a significant role. So a lot of brands, particularly FMCG companies, would like to use voice to reach out to their consumers across the nation, and it will require vernacular capabilities. And I think using voice AI would be the next adoption in terms of companies like in the FMCG sector. And we have already seen them using voice where it is simply programs based on IVR. But we believe that when the voice enabled or AI enabled voice technology will be mature, then they will be able to create much stronger programs in the market for consumers to take advantage of. For example, if consumers can simply speak and the engine at the say IVR can understand what the consumer is saying, then the brand can create a unique kind of experience which currently is not possible. So right now everything is structured through press one for this, press two for this, and it makes it very I would say a lot of consumers get upset with it because the conversation is constrained. So if it is completely AI driven, then consumer simply says, and the other end at the brand IVR platform understands, and the conversation flows seamlessly. So a lot of developments are happening, and we have seen at least consumer products both at say Google level, Alexa, and so on. So the point is that we need to adapt them for business use cases. So which is work in progress. We ourselves have some roadmap around it, but it is still some time away for us at least.
All right, all right. Very
Yeah,
interesting,
over
Vish.
to you.
Thanks. The next question. Yeah, thanks, Vish. The next question is for Mr. Abhay. And as every business, we look at a return on investment, right? So this is a very interesting question. What are the parameters on the basis of which we can measure the success of a conversational AI or a chatbot? And what are the steps we need to take as leaders to make it more impactful? Abhay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first and
Do you want?
foremost thing is like, the first and foremost thing is to have, like, when you say AI and all this, what is needed is right quality of data, because when you say AI, it's a prediction, it's a suggestion to the users. So the quality of data which is more generated from machine, that gives better result. If it is manually adjusted data, then you have a problem. And the more the data, the better the quality of suggestions input for chatbot and other. That is what is my suggestion, and that is how we are also going.
Okay, Abhay. This is also quite interesting for us, because when we look at return on investment, we have people in the industry as well. So again, anyone, Milind, Lavdeep, Jayant, would you like to add something to what Abhay has said? Because this is quite relevant. People would want to know how to gauge the return on investment. Some particular parameters which you think are very important, which will help us get the ROI, other than quality of data, because lead nurturing, I guess everything depends on a lot of things, right? Any more parameters that you can think of?
I'm not sure about the question. Is it about using the data and the ROI related to it, or it's about using technology and ROI for it?
Well, I'll repeat the question. What are the parameters on the basis of which we can measure the success of the conversational AI or chatbot? And what are the steps we as leaders should take to make it more impactful?
Okay.
I guess what the person wants to ask is, if you want your chatbot or your AI-enabled chatbot to be more successful, which are the features that you would need to your chatbot to have? And as leaders, what would you envisage looking at the future to make it more impactful?
Right. So
I hope I've tried to make it.
Yeah, I'll respond in
Yeah.
two ways. One, of course, if it's related to commerce, then the answer is very, very obvious. It has to be measured in terms of the number of transactions that really gets converted and the repeats that you can generate through that. If it is about, so it's about the goal that you're chasing. If the goal is about engagement, and many times some of these conversation channels are more about story and engagement than really selling the product at this stage. So if it's about that, then it's actually measured through the engagement rate of a customer, which is a satisfaction rate. So if a satisfaction rate is higher, eventually it will lead to sales, right? So we'll have to just break it down to two parts. So what's the objective of setting it up? If it's really commerce, then it has to be commerce KPIs. Otherwise, it has to be engagement and satisfaction KPIs. I don't know if I answered it, but that's what I think I'll like to do.
Well, Vish is the person who actually, can be the person who is on the other side of the
I'd
table.
like to
Vish,
add
what
to
are
what
your?
Lavdeep just said.
Yeah, Jain, tell me.
See, this question is trying to look at it from a very, very straight-jacketed kind of a perspective.
Yeah.
The answer to this cannot be all-encompassing. The success for any one of these will be dependent on where it is being used. It's case by case basis. What, as Lavdeep said, what is the objective of using that technology or that AI in that situation? AI could be used at a very macro level for strategic kind of work that is being done. The return on that would be taken at how accurate it is in predicting some behavior. AI could be used in a transactional or a conversational interaction. There you would look at how accurate it was in being able to respond to a customer. So there are different functions, there are different objectives to each of the places where it would be deployed. There can be no single answer to it. Its success will depend on what the objective was. AI is as a major conceptual tool is extremely powerful and can be used in so many different places. Now, if you are talking about it in a very limited sense of a conversational transaction with a customer, it has specific objectives. So was it able to deliver on the specific objectives? And then therefore it is measurable. So the measurement criteria and the success criteria are going to be different. It's case specific.
Perfect. Got it. There's one other question which has been asked, and Vish, I would request you to please take this up. can we fully automate conversational marketing AI using AI or chatbot, and does it require any human intervention?
Again, I think it's like the previous question. The answer cannot be really specific. It depends on what exactly you want to address as the use case. So, if it is, say, lead capture, there are possibilities that you can even achieve, you can create a great chatbot without using any AI, and it can give you the results. You may want to include AI if the use case so demands, and then uh, depending on what kind of process is involved in capturing the lead, it would then depend on that. So there is no specific answer to it, but the point really is that there are ways to implement things using technology, and you know the capabilities of the technology. So when you go about actual implementation, you will keep all that in mind. So you will know the limitations. For example, your AI engine, its sentiment analysis is, say, 80% success. So you will build your use case accordingly. Likewise, if you know it is generally, it captures the intent at this percentage level, yeah, so you will bear that also in mind. So the whole idea is that whatever technology you are going to use in terms of, say, AI component or AI engine, because it is very domain specific, so there are no set answers, because it is all very nascent. Data is not trained for all verticals at the moment. So you will need to bear that in mind. And in the end, I would say you can still achieve a great marketing, conversational marketing, without using any AI at all. Thanks.
Okay. Excellent. This is very interesting because we are getting a lot of thoughts which earlier were a little muddled up, in terms of this. So in the interest of time, we'll take the last question for the day. And please keep sending us questions, dear audiences, because we will definitely get back to you. We do have experts here who can get back to you. So please don't shy away. But in the interest of time, I am asking the last question to our esteemed panel. And the question is, can you give us an example of any FMCG entity using a chatbot or a conversational AI, and how it has helped them in providing better customer service? So, who would like to take a stab at it? It's related to FMCG, so I guess Jayant can take it. Lavdeep can take it. Lavdeep can take it as well, and of course, Vish can take it.
You are asking for an example, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, really speaking, where do you interact with organizations mostly? You call up for a service, you call up to complain or whatever, right? That's where you have a conversation with an organization. Now, which are the best ones that you find? Till now, most customers in India, if you conduct a survey, and we keep doing these very frequently, most of the times that you've had a conversation with any organization has been when you called up to complain, or you called up to inquire about something, or ask for, order a service, and you're responded by a human voice. It's not yet a chatbot, is not automated voice. It's still a human voice, and which is reading out from a script. Now, there are companies which are enabling their people a lot better. Something that, today you are, by using artificial intelligence to mine the data that you have, you are able to provide a better script on a live manner to your.
Rohit, can we have a second call on this after 10-15 minutes?
Sorry, could you please go on mute, whoever is having a call?
Sorry.
Sorry, Jayant. Sorry, Jayant.
No problem.
Please continue.
What I was saying is, see, AI today it's a nascent tool, and it should be used in a way to enhance the efficiency of your existing solutions. It is not standing alone today, right? The time for that will come. There will be a time when this tool will become, the intelligence behind this tool will become such that it will be able to do it without the human being. But we've spent decades years and so much of expense in training up a manpower to deliver these services. And we've had problems in that. They are not consistently good enough, or they make errors. Now, AI today is being used in a manner that you reduce the number of errors they make, you enhance their efficiency, you enhance their ability by giving them the right information at the right time. That's where we are using AI, and that's where a lot of the organizations that I work with are using AI in a better way. So examples of this, you call up any organization, any good brand, and you'd find people responding back to you. I'm ready to bet that a lot of these organizations, whether it's on credit card services, whether it's in banking, whether it's in insurance, that they have employed one or the other AI tools to enhance the efficiency and the ability and the skills of their people.
Perfect. I'm very cognizant of the fact that we have super short our panel discussion by about 17 minutes. And in the interest of time, I would like to first thank all my panelists and also summarize this excellent discussion that we had. So please allow me about 2 minutes to do that. It's a known fact right from the time we started this conversation that it's very, very important for us to understand that adopting technology is not an option anymore. It is going to be the new norm, and it is going to be an imperative for all our businesses. And therefore, for to survive and to sustain, and more importantly, be resilient, technology has to become an integral part of the DNA of our IT architecture. That's point number one that each one of you iterated. The second aspect, especially with respect to the culture change, and that's where we reiterated the fact that culture should be start from inside out, where the leaders have to be convinced with the fact that this is for the larger good, and it's imperative for us to adapt and adopt technology. And the culture's change can start by starting small, by making sure that we have a couple of pilots so that we can do the litmus test. We are not afraid to kind of fail in the initial stages, because from the pilots, we will get to understand the larger picture, and it will also give us a lot more data to play with. And then when we moved on to AI-based conversational methods in today's world, we got an idea that conversational commerce, conversational marketing, conversational contact centers, which Vish also shared in his keynote address, are different aspects of a conversational business that cannot be overruled right now, for the simple reason because customer wants the services where they are, when they want it, and therefore being agile and flexible in your business model is not an option. And who can help you? That technology, but not technology alone. You need a technology with superlative degree of understanding, which is where artificial intelligence plays a very critical role. And again, in the AI methods, you have to understand that it has to be contextual for your business and not just a force fit, which is where we need to understand that rather than just focusing on tools that are available for us, which are good as jargons, we need to use simple tools which can be easily integrated with the existing systems, which are the customer's preferences. So sending a message through an SMS or a WhatsApp right now, looking at the current situation where people are a little bit reluctant to share the information or be on groups, they're still quite open to these platforms simply because it's easily accessible and it is basically second skin for them, which is where we are seeing the trend that people are comfortable with these kind of conversational modes. We have also started understanding that with respect to different modes of communicating to our customers, social media, digital media, is helping us to become more agile, but at the same time is also giving us multiple options of understanding the preferences and the attitude of people. The one size fits all doesn't help everyone, and as a result of which, all our panelists have given us a very clear idea that there is no fixed method of identifying your ROI. Everything boils down to first understanding the objective of your company, making sure that you create a story, you create the objectives / goals for your company, you articulate a story around it. What is it that you want to converse? Identify your target audience's preferred locations or preferred modes of communication. Obviously, being omni-channel is the best, but that will again help you to scatter your services. So how to choose which omni-channel is relevant for you is very, very important. So create your goals, create your story of engagement, look at the satisfaction rate of your company, of your customers, and nurture your leads, because that is where that is what will lead to the goodwill of the customers and eventually the return on investment. And last but not the least, everybody talks about return on investment for your businesses, but my dear friends, one message, underlining message that all our panelists gave, that return on ignorance is a higher price to pay. And each one of us, and this pandemic basically has taught us that using technology and relevant technology in the form of conversing with your clients is not an option anymore. So it's important to use the technology that are readily available with you and partner with the right business partner who understands your pain points and who can give you exactly what you want, is basically what I believe can help you create a successful conversational business and will help you reimagine your business. Well, this is basically the summary of our panel discussion from what I understood from this conversation. I would like to give all of you a very big hand for kind of, being really having a very inclusive kind of a conversation. And thank you so very much. And, thank you, Vish. Thank you, Lavdeep. Thank you, Jain. Thank you, Milind. Thank you, Abhay. It was very nice kind of speaking to all of you. I look forward to being in touch with all of you. So thank you very much. And over to you, Divya.
Thank you, Naina.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naina.
Well,
Thank you very much.
thank you so much. First, let me thank Ms. Naina for summarizing the entire panel discussion and duly helping in answering the relevant questions raised by our attendees today. Truly valuable takeaways from this session for everyone. Sincere thanks to our panelists for their valuable contribution to the session too. With this, we bring today's virtual conference to a close. Today's session wouldn't have been a success without the active participation of all our esteemed speakers, panelists, and delegates, of course. I would like to thank each and every one of you for taking the time out and being a part of this virtual conference today. A special thanks to ValueFirst for their support to this initiative, without whom, of course, this conference wouldn't have been a reality. Thank you once again, ladies and gentlemen. Take care and stay safe.